Hi guys, welcome again to Ask Milena, and today we're going to be talking about guilt. Do you ever feel guilty? What actions do you take or not take because of guilt? Do you like the results that you get? I'm talking about it today because guilt is one of the most poisonous driving forces or energies that we can do something with. And I have seen some of the most inadequate and hurtful actions taken out of a sense of guilt. And that serves no one. So it's definitely worth looking at and potentially making some changes to. The sense of guilt has two different forms: natural guilt and artificial guilt. And natural guilt simply is when you don't like the results of something that you have done, of your actions, simply to not do it again and choose something different instead. In the natural sense of guilt, a potential next step would be to acknowledge how the person has felt if the recipient of the action is someone outside of us, because very often it is ourselves that we have hurt. So acknowledge how the person has felt, say that you're sorry, mean it, and move on from there. And although that is one of the most natural things to do when we feel guilty about something, when we feel like we have hurt somebody, the interesting thing is that very rarely we actually end up doing that. And artificial guilt is very closely related to the idea of punishment, that you have to pay for what it is that you have done. And nobody likes to be in that position. So very often we avoid admitting that guilt, we avoid feeling it, and we avoid taking simple actions to remedy that. Now, I do have to mention it that for many of us, that artificial sense of guilt has a lot to do with our religious upbringing. We're sinners by default, and we have to spend our lives paying for our sins, right? At the risk of pissing some people off, I'm going to say that this is BS and simply leave it at that. And even at a societal level, we look at things if people have to pay for their sins and they need to pay for what they're done. This isn't healthy, but we are conditioned to believe that the person, the perpetrator, paying for their sins is going to bring us huge relief. And I say conditioned, but how many movies, can you count how many movies you have seen where the main character spends most or all of their life seeking revenge because something bad has happened to them, their family, or somebody that they love, right? So many. And this is just one way in which we're conditioned to think that it's going to bring us relief. But hurting another person, causing the same amount of suffering or more to somebody who has hurt us, does nothing to help us and make us feel better. Now, with any type of guilt, whether it's natural or unnatural, what I recommend that we do, other than just analyzing it and looking at these things and figuring out which one it is to simply process that. And I always recommend that for any type of emotion that we don't like that is in our field. And as always, I'm going to link to the exercise that you can use to do that. But now, beyond that, with some personal experiences, for example, I grew up in a family where my dad, for example, he never really said he was sorry. I'm sure that he felt guilty and he was sorry for many things that he had done, but he never really truly said the words and acknowledged how the other person had felt. Again, why? Because that makes it feel like you're a lesser person, it's admittance of fault, and it's agreement to be punished, because this is how we see the equation. You do something bad, then you have to pay for it, you're punished for it. And nobody really wants to do that. The natural way of experiencing things is, oops, I did not like the effects of that. I'm so sorry that hurt you. How can I make it better? In my own personal experience, I know I have done plenty of things that have been torturous to myself out of guilt. I have done plenty of things that I didn't want to do, that I felt like I had to out of guilt, or I haven't allowed myself to do things that I wanted to do, again, out of guilt. Now, very often, people will project guilt onto you and try to make you feel guilty because it is a very, very good tool for manipulation. And once you start looking at it, it will become much easier for you to recognize when that happens and not allow it. But if you don't have that inner sense of guilt, when somebody projects guilt onto you, there will be nothing for it to latch onto. So if you do feel guilty, although it's a projection, you probably have some of that guilt inside you. And then it's a very, very, very good idea to process it first. So let's stop feeling guilty. Very often we feel guilty because we're mothers, because we're very busy. We spend a lot of time on our business, because we don't spend enough time with our children, or we feel guilty when we go and we take some time for ourselves or a weekend away, or because we take dance classes twice a week and we feel like there's a lot of other responsibilities that we need to fulfill. There are many, many reasons that we feel guilty, but that is unhealthy for us. It's unhealthy for our families and those around us as well. If you need help pinpointing and processing that guilt, feel free to book a session at askmilena.com. Subscribe to my site and my newsletter so that you can receive the ebook 7 Life Hacks to Empower Your Daily Life, more free tools, and some personal updates that I don't share anywhere else. Have you subscribed to the channel already? If not, you can do so below and click on the bell so that you can get notified of all new videos, and they come out on Friday. See you soon.